This college football carousel cycle has seen two blue bloods perform really weird, not necessarily ideal searches and kind of fall ass backwards into really good head coaches. I'm talking about Matt Campbell ending up at Penn State. And the reason I bring that up is that Michigan probably would have hired Matt Campbell after firing Sherrone Moore if he was available, but instead they get a guy that we're all kind of asking, why is Kyle Whittingham available? It's kind of amazing, guys. Like, this is a football coach who has been arguably the most consistent in terms of program architecture in the modern era of college football. And I define the modern era as when the BCS started around 98. I think he got the job at Utah after Urban left Utah for Florida. So he's been in the game. This was stuff we were looking up yesterday on our show. He has rebuilt Utah for 3 different conferences, including a jump to the power status. The idea that Michigan was able to land him is kind of amazing given the circumstances that this program was in and still really is in. We're not out of the woods yet with Michigan.
When you look at this hire, let's not ignore the fact that the Michigan football program has been in duress over the last several years, not on the football field, but in the headlines and in their public relations. How much of a factor do you think the Michigan brass had to look at Kyle Whittingham and say, look, he's been at Utah for 20 plus years, didn't have a scandal, never slept with a staffer, never was in the headlines for any kind of negative reason, or was it just, hey, that's the best coach that's available?
Yes. No, I definitely think it's both. There's a great joke running around social, and I've seen several people make it, so I don't know who did it first, but shortly after he emerged as the front runner, a Michigan fan said, well, I like the hire potentially because he follows 5 women on Instagram and they're his wife, daughters, and family members. So yeah, that's definitely part of it. You're in this situation for a reason. And I'm not saying that the cultural rot at Michigan was limited to the head football coach or even the football staff. There's still a lot left to deal with in Ann Arbor, but Kyle Whittingham is exceedingly boring off of the field and exceedingly consistent on it, which are 2 things that Michigan has not had in question mark. It's been quite a while, right? I mean, Jim Harbaugh talked a lot about principles and ideology, and you remember he famously came out and said it's hard to beat the cheaters. He was talking about watch this, guys. He was talking about the current Michigan head coach's buddy, Urban Meyer. You like what I did there? I'm gonna have so much fun with this offseason. I can't wait. Because guess what? The Michigan head coach and Urban Meyer, they're big buddies, guys. They're friends. You guys are so excited in Ann Arbor. Anyway, sorry, I completely lost my train of thought. It's just been so fun trolling them in this moment. This is Kyle Whittingham is consistent and boring. And I'm going to use a phrase here called bridge coach that people often misconstrue as some sort of pejorative. But what I mean is this is a guy who is capable of winning immediately with most of what will return on this roster while Michigan figures out, like, what does the next 10 to 12 years of this program look like? He could have, I think, 5 amazing seasons here, get them maybe to a playoff berth, and not have the program completely implode.
I just want to remind everybody because, look, I know he's 66. Yeah. I just, as I've said to everybody, I've said on this show before, no matter what your political affiliation is, I will remind everybody the last 2 people that were elected to be the president of the United States were older than 66 years old. So if you can run the free world according to the voters, then I think you can probably run a football team. I'm not worried about the age, but I do like at least your concept. I mean, I think they do have to have some concept of what's coming next, right?
Well, Fitz, Cignetti's the same age, basically. Okay? It's amazing how age works against you or for you just depending on recency bias. Curt Cignetti and Kyle Whittingham are basically the same age, same generation, same philosophy, same whatever. So if you can trust a guy who's 63 or 66, it's all situational with the age thing. That doesn't bother me as much. And it is funny that you bring up the POTUS deal. It's used against you until it's not. And then all of a sudden, everyone's talking about Cignetti, and he's like, "Oh, he's a seasoned coach." No, it just means he's got gray hair. That's it. There's really no difference. So I don't think age has anything to do with it. Now, if you notice, I did say 5 years, maybe 4 to 6, 7 range. Oh God, I just did 6, 7. Oh God, no. I have 3 children. I'm so sorry. He won't be a long-term solution. He's never been at if there's one thing in his resume that he lacks, I think it is management of a program this style. However, I don't think that should be held against him because he just hasn't had the opportunity and he kept winning at Utah. But I don't know if you were to take him off the board for a second and go back to what was really a frustrating search for Michigan because of the time and the cycle that had occurred, there's no ideal candidate. There wasn't a guy out there that was ready to have a sort of Dan Lanning or even Kurt Signetti type effect on the modern personnel acquisition in the game with NIL and portal and all that. Like, that guy really wasn't out there. And then you also have to answer to all of these sort of bespoke Michigan needs. And, Whittingham doesn't do that perfectly. I don't think, I don't know if he's necessarily a Michigan man, but I think he was absolutely best available. And when you start a search well after Thanksgiving, after a controversial firing, where 90% of the available market of quality head coaching candidates is they've either extended, they've signed their deal, so they're off the market, or they've gone to a new school. This was the best you could do, and I still think they did really well.
Godfrey, do you want to transition to the college football playoff because we're just a couple days away from CFP action? If we go back to last year, not a single team that had the first round bye was represented in the national championship. I mean, Ohio State and Notre Dame both played in the first week of the playoffs, and I think Ohio State had the toughest path of any of them. Tennessee, Oregon,
Right.
and then Texas, and to an eventual national championship. Is it fair to say that a first round bye might not actually be the advantage that we think it is?
Yes and no, because we're comparing only two brackets. And in the time between those two brackets, we've changed the philosophy behind giving a bye. And so what I mean by that was that you had to be a conference champion last year to earn a bye. So that's how Boise State and Arizona State ended up earning a bye and then losing to better teams, right? And then also, on top of that, you had this incredibly unique situation where Ohio State was just the best team in the tournament with the most recent loss. So let me say that one more time. The best team in the tournament, the national champion, the deserving national champion, also the one that spent the most NIL last year, had to open in the first round at home against Tennessee because they lost to Michigan in a sort of inexplicable moment, right? That was one of the most inexplicable games of the last decade. Because of that one circumstance and by that tiny loss to Michigan, that sort of put the entire bracket in referendum, which I don't think it deserved to be. Now, I'm fine with not necessarily awarding a bye to an auto conference champion because I don't think I think that's almost too much of a reward given how the disparity between what we consider to be, this is a conference champion, this is a power conference champion. Like that's where it gets out of whack. I think the four highest ranked teams by the committee, which is the system we have now, by the way, is the best way to award a bye. But if we want to jump ahead to the end of this conversation, it looks like we're going to probably lose some of these buys moving forward because expansion either to 14 or 16 feels inevitable. And because of the compression of the schedule, we won't have a week where I'm not exactly sure if it's going to be a straight clean 1 through 16 if we go that way. I do think you're going to see fewer buys awarded. And so you might just have 1 or 2 next year and it'll be the obvious number 1 or number 2 seed.
I mean, at some point, look, all three of us on this right now are lovers of and workers around college football. I just hate the calendar, the playoffs. Like, Steve, to me, you move the Army-Navy game to the beginning of the season. The delay. I want Army-Navy at the beginning of the season to kick the season off.
Wow.
Then we can celebrate America, go through the season, and immediately after, like, Selection Sunday, that Friday, give me playoffs. Like, this wait of a week and a half to get to a game and then 2 weeks to get to another game. Like, the college football playoff right now has no momentum. I think it's forgotten in the casual lexicon because it just hasn't been on anybody's mind. And we're going to have to re-educate and re-promote this entire damn thing, which feels stupid for the sport. Playoffs are for the casuals, and the casuals are not being served by this awful calendar.
You're right. And you're not alone, but the problem is there are a lot of people on opposite sides that are working against any kind of playoff reform. And so, okay, what do I mean by that? There's a million directions we can go here. You can blame the Rose Bowl and the people who worship at the altar of the Rose Bowl and the fact that it has to be played on New Year's Day afternoon and we have to see that sunset in Pasadena. It's not my fault you live in the Midwest, okay? There's a sunset in Pensacola like 330 days a year. Move there. It's not my fault. But people in college football, they have to have that, right? I like that my light went out as soon as I made fun of a sunset in Pasadena. That was great. You can blame the NFL. You have to have available spots in terms of television inventory, because ESPN, which is the primary and sole rights holder of the playoff, has basically said, without saying it, we're not going to put inventory against NFL inventory. Okay? No matter what happens. We are not going to put a playoff game against any regular season NFL game. And if you guys want to call the NFL for comment real fast and try and figure out if they'll move those games back off of Saturdays in December, let me know. Let me, Fitz, if you want to get Goodell on the phone there real fast, let me know how that goes. It's a big topic. I could talk for an hour about this. You want to talk about the beginning of the season? The NFL's coming for Labor Day, guys. They've taken Christmas from the NBA, pulled it out completely. They took Black Friday from college football, and they're going to take Labor Day when they go to 18 games. Because I don't know if they want to go further into the winter. It would depend on if they wanted to change the combine schedule and how they would do personnel and draft and offseason. The NFL continues to expand, and every media rights holder continues to acquiesce to the NFL. So there's a lot of things you can blame college football for, but like the one that makes me mad, Fitz, is not this coming round, because we are still psychologically programmed for New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, big bowl games, right? So plugging this part of the bracket into that makes sense, and I'm fine with that. It's that next round. So I'm talking about what, next like Thursday night? There's a Final Four game? What? It's going to start at 8:30 Eastern? What? Like that's a terrible time slot. There's no way to program any sort of like viewership ritual, no tailgate, obviously, because it's going to be in some anonymous NFL stadium. That's to me where it starts to really feel bolted on and unnecessary. And then, of course, we play the national championship on a Monday night, you know, that traditional night for college football. We're going to play on a Monday night. So there's a lot of things wrong with it. 90% of it I could blame on television / let's call it sort of like old money stakeholders like the Rose Bowl. But unfortunately, I can tell you this as a media member. None of this is going to change.
The NFL's king. That's not changing anytime soon.
No.
Yeah. Let's look at the slate upcoming, though. Godfrey, we like to do a thing called Monday headlines on Fridays. We like to predict what we're going to be talking about on Monday. I don't even know what day it is. So what is going to be your post-second round of the playoffs headline of the 4 games that we get over the next few days?
Ooh. Post-second round headline. I think there will be one NIL dominant brand or team that is going to push its way closer to a national championship. And that so in other words, of the non-traditional route, I'm talking about Indiana. I'm talking about Texas Tech, potentially Ole Miss, although I feel like they have the weakest chance because I really like what Georgia's doing right now. One of those teams I think is going to win substantially. And I think it's going to be because of the 1-year rented talent, you know, terrible, whatever, we're paying the players, the world's ending. That narrative will be pushed pretty hard in the hot take circles as we enter into the Final Four round for sure. I also feel like there's potential here for Alabama to not look great. I really like the way Indiana matches up. Have you guys seen, speaking of Pasadena, have you seen a weather report for that game? This feels like it could be a massive moment for the next era of college football, because Indiana being such a non-traditional power and showing up like so quickly the way they have the last 2 years against that Tiffany brand in Alabama, this game feels like it could be a really ugly, dominant Hoosier win, kind of the way those 2012 and 2013 Alabama teams looked.